Welcome to Tame the Taboo. This podcast is brought to you by Discover Health. Discover Health specializes in healthcare, education, and resources for her most intimate concerns. I'm your host, Nurse Jenna. I'm a women's health and gender-related nurse practitioner, and I am making it my business to take you from sufferer to sensei. So if you are suffering from conditions that are not easily treated in an annual exam, or you want to join me on this journey to become my healthiest, wealthiest, best business owning self, sit back, relax, and enjoy these episodes. And welcome back to another episode of Tame the Taboo. I'm your host, Nurse Jenna, and I'm very excited today that we are able to bring a traditional Chinese medicine specialist, an acupuncturist, and now I can say a friend of mine onto the show. So welcome to Qianlei.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Hey, so acupuncture is something that is new to me as a provider. I've oftentimes recommended it to clients who have like anxiety and stress and what we call like intractable pelvic pain. So we've tried so many other things and their pelvic pain just is not getting to the point where they're able to manage it. So then we tap into more of the like Eastern medicine, things like acupuncture. So I'm so happy to have you as a resource and even happier that I got to experience your services firsthand.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very, very excited that I'm able to share topic from Chinese medicine and acupuncture perspective. I
Yeah.
think it's a great opportunity to just kind of complement with the traditional conventional.
Okay, so tell the people I gave a little introduction, but tell the people like who you are because you have such a very interesting background, Chinlei. So who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, of course. So I am a second generation traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and life acupuncturist. I am trained and have a graduate degree in both biochemistry and traditional Chinese medicine. Currently, I practice in Old Town, Alexandria. I treat women's health, mental health, and chronic.
Okay, so you treat women's health and mental health, and oftentimes, women have mental health disorders, and a lot of time it's impacted by our physical symptoms. So it's nice that you have a tool in your toolbox with acupuncture that you can address both the physical realities that we're going through as women, but then also how that manifests itself like mentally.
Yeah, exactly. Oftentimes, it's hard to kind of disconnect from physical level of discomfort to mental, like anxiety and depression. And I personally found it's more helpful when we target those issues at once. And acupuncture is a great way to address those two.
So I understand that you are from a long line of traditional Chinese medicine providers, right? Can you tell me a little bit
Yeah.
more about like your family history? Because it's so interesting.
Yeah. So both my parents are traditional Chinese medicine doctors in Shanghai, China. I grew up in such a family where to me, I always thought like, when you're sick, you're supposed to take Chinese herbs. When growing up, it's always been like, for example, if I have a fever, my mom would take my pulse, look at my tongue, ask me a bunch of questions, and I would take down this really bitter liquid decoction, and I would like feel better. Sometimes, for example, when I was in high school, I had a high outbreak out of nowhere, and I was taken to the hospital. Of course, I went to see a specialist and I did all the blood work. But when it comes to treatment, I go back to taking Chinese herb first to see if it helps. When it got really bad, I take that along with medication. But eventually, I was able to get off medication.
That's really cool. So is that how you practice too? Kind of with like Western world meets traditional Chinese medicine working in tangent?
Yes, yes, 100%. I think Chinese medicine, even if it's called traditional Chinese medicine, it should really be used, like in conjunction with conventional medicine. Usually, what I recommend my patients to do, for example, is to see a specialist, to see a Western medicine doctor first to get diagnosis. You need to be on medication, be on medication. If you feel like, it's not so urgent, you can take a holistic approach first and do that. Then, depending on what their issues are, once we treat it with acupuncture and Chinese herbs for a while, I let them go back, do another, blood work, ultrasound to see where we are.
Very, very cool. So for some people, we have had zero to like very little experience with traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So if you had to explain it, dumb it down for the lay people, what exactly is acupuncture?
So acupuncture is a form of traditional Chinese medicine. Involves inserting of tiny, tiny needles that into what we call acupuncture point. And these points have different functions depending on what acupuncture point we're using, depending on what issue we're treating. Usually the results are to improve, to relax the muscle, to calm down the central nervous system, to relieve natural painkiller chemicals so that you feel better. So that would be acupuncture.
And so some people might be familiar with like chakras. Is there any sort of correlation? Can you tell me the correlation between like maybe the acupuncture points and chakras, or is there any
Um,
connection?
so I I think there are like different ways of explaining chakra. I myself I use acupuncture as a way of a modality of traditional Chinese medicine. So we call a word called qi. So we use acupuncture to either move the qi flow, move the energy flow, or we use acupuncture to improve the qi generation from your body. That way you feel better, or you feel more energy like that.
So she is kind of the life force that moves everything, every system in your body. Is that what you're
Ex-
saying?
Exactly, yeah. So Chinese medicine qi is the base idea. And for example, blood flow, blood circulation in Chinese medicine is pushed by qi flow, pushed by energy flow. And in cases where we do a surgery where you lose a lot of blood, Chinese medicine wise, your qi, your energy also goes along with the blood.
And so then instead of, or maybe not instead of, but in addition to like a blood
Mhm.
transfusion, if you lose a lot
Mhm.
of blood, you would also need to re-energize your chi. Is that the right
Yes,
language?
yes, yes. To improve the qi, for example, if you've done a big surgery, then after the surgery, we use qi nourishing herb or use qi generating points to help your body digest better, to better absorb the food into nutrients. That way you feel more.
Very, very interesting. So, okay, I just want to speak a little bit and hype you up because we're both in Old Town. You're on Instagram as the Old Town acupuncturist, and that's actually how we connected was on
Yes.
Instagram. And so now we've been able to meet a couple times in person. And this most recent time I came to your space and it was so beautiful. Um,
Yeah.
just so calming. I think that it is so important to have a space that is designed for your clients, and you've really done a good job of doing that. So I just wanna, like, hype
Yeah.
that up to the people in Old Town. Definitely go check out the space. It's worth it. But beyond that, I got to experience acupuncture for the first time, and again, I
Wow.
recommended it to clients, but I didn't experience it myself, so I kinda was going into it like, "Oh, this will be cool," but I definitely left with a new appreciation for it, and I feel like it'll be a tool that I'll reach for more frequently because I just
Right.
felt relaxed and, like, and energized at the same time, and it was great because I was walking into, like, a really big workshop that I was doing, and I was like, "This was perfect, perfect timing." So, it doesn't always have to be, like, after a major surgery, to
Yeah.
re-energize the
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Especially in our life right now, everyone is having so packed agenda. Everybody is just so overworked and so overly stressed. Acupuncture is something that personally I think everyone needs on a regular basis.
even if it's just to carve out scheduled time on your calendar to say, like, once a week or once a month or every 2 weeks, I'm gonna take,
Exactly.
30 minutes or an hour, and I'm gonna see Qianlei, and we're gonna just have, like, me time to
Exactly. Exactly. Sometimes I have patients that are they tell me I'm not good at relaxing. I can't relax. But when they're on the table, they would wake up and it's like, wow, a transformation. I just see them just zen out. And that I think is going to be very productive and helpful in our everyday life.
Yeah, Zen is very protective, like, you need downtime to reinvigorate everything, right? Like to heal
Yeah,
yourself, you need to be able to relax.
for sure, for sure. And to be able to like focus better. Um, exactly.
So, okay, your primary niche is women and mental
Mhm.
health. Within women's health, I treat a lot of conditions, pelvic pain, incontinence, all of these like very intimate things. Do you have a favorite thing to treat within women's health?
Um, yeah, that is such a good question. That is such a good question. I love, you have to pick one. Can I say two?
You can say too.
So I would say the very first thing that I love the most is to help women get pregnant. Every time I see either a positive pregnancy test or a baby being born, that is, I feel like very rarely can I be so much happier than that. That's the first thing. The second thing is to help with menstruation, irregular menstruation cramps, and like in that realm, which it kind of goes hand in hand too with their mentally, their anxiety, and their stress.
I was gonna say those things are 2 sides of the same coin too, like
Yeah,
having irregularities with your period is gonna be
yeah,
inherently to get pregnant.
exactly. That's usually my first step to treat infertility is to work on their period.
Hmm.
So,
It's interesting how wanting to have a baby makes us pay attention to things. Like
mm,
there are so many clients that I have who have had years and years of pelvic pain and like painful intercourse, but it's not until they are like seeking pregnancy that they're like, no, I have to take care of this because I
wow.
can't get pregnant, right? I can't have sex to get pregnant. Do you find the same? Like there's just a different level of motivation?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, like we're always so busy. So a lot of women, we try to just kind of push down our own needs so that we can just meet our agenda and schedule day to day. But only when that moment comes when you're like, oh no, now I really need to fix it, then it becomes your own priority. Which, especially with in American culture wise, I'm Chinese, in American culture wise, period pain is normal. You know, taking birth control, to cope with period pain is normal. Taking that day off because of period is normal. So that is kind of gives us more than like, I'm fine when you should really be working on the menstruation. And coming from Chinese heritage, Chinese culture wise, especially in Chinese medicine, the quality and appearance of our menstruation really says a lot about our internal health for women.
So meaning you're asking clients like, what is the color of your bleeding? What
Yes,
Okay. So
yes.
tell me a little bit more about that, like, educate me on
Mhm.
that. Like, what is the
Yeah,
correlation between, like, the colors and maybe, like, the symptoms that women are experiencing?
right. So, for example, every patient trying to get pregnant or having period issues, I ask, what is the color of your period when it first starts? A lot of people say, "Oh, it's like dark brown." Some people say like it starts light pink. Some people say it just start with like a very heavy, bright red. All these different colors means different diagnosis, different symptoms in Chinese medicine. For example, if your periods start with dark brown and especially with dark brown spotting, that means blood stagnation in Chinese medicine. So what that means is your blood circulation is not the best. Whereas I hear a lot of people say dark brown means old blood. According to Chinese medicine, it means blood stagnation. I have a patient that she's been trying to get pregnant. She's done one round of IVF, didn't success. She's had one miscarriage before, and we've been working together for 1 month. Her period this time just really shocked her because she's like, oh my gosh, this time it did not start with dark brown spotting. It was just a red flow. And her period used to have a lot of like blueberry size clots, and now she's like this time it's like less than like a pinhead. So those are different symptoms that in Chinese medicine shows that your blood circulation in the pelvic area is not the best.
So interesting. So, yeah, I've heard the term like old blood too, and I tend to think of it as like it has oxidized, right? Like it has
Mhm.
exposed to oxygen for longer, and so the color changes. And I guess it is the same thing. Like if you don't have the circulation there, then it's going to be stagnant, and then you're going to
Yeah.
have more oxidized color. So interesting.
Yeah. Thank you. It's fascinating.
So, blood flow to the pelvic area for a lot of the conditions I treat is absolutely essential, right? So, if
Yeah.
you have impaired blood flow, you're not going to have good orgasms. You're not going to have good tissue integrity because you don't have the blood causing the elasticity of the tissue.
Mm.
So, we do a lot with hormones, and hormones are simply just like signals that tell your body to do whatever, right? And so, we give
Yeah.
to vaginal hormones to tell your body to basically have more circulation to the area. And so, what
Right.
you're saying is that with acupuncture, you can
Yeah.
promote more circulation in a different way.
Yes, yes, for sure. With acupuncture, we work on the local acupuncture points that are around the pelvic area. We also use other distal points, for example, could be on your hand, on your feet, that to use the meridian system to bring the energy flow and blood flow into the local pelvic area.
So, very interesting. So, have you
Yeah.
do you ask about sex with your clients too? Do you
Yep.
ask like, are your orgasms better now that your blood color has changed and things like that?
Yeah. So especially for people that are like either fibroid patients or patients trying to conceive, I always ask them about the sex life. Are you, having good orgasm? Especially what I see a lot of people that have been trying to conceive for so long, they see the date range and they're more like, we gotta do it. That's it. But they're not, kind of focused on the quality and the
Yeah, it becomes an obligation. Like, oh,
for
I
sure.
have to do this because the goal is to get pregnant. It becomes almost like laborious versus something
Yeah,
you can like enjoy.
for sure. For sure.
Very, very interesting. So you brought up fibroids a little bit. So tell
Mhm.
me a little bit more about fibroids. Like we know in the GYN world that fibroids are very prevalent, especially with Black American women.
Oh. Mhm.
And it can cause things like heavy bleeding, pelvic pain, bloating, pressure, all these symptoms that are just not so fun. And so, what
Mhm.
you're presenting is that there can be a different way of managing those symptoms of fibroids. So, tell me more about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. So fibroids in Chinese medicine, depending on how big the fibroid is, depend on the lifestyle, it is possible that it can be shrunk using acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, especially Chinese herbs. And to me, that is a great tool, another tool to complement, especially if people are looking for more of a like less invasive or more holistic approach.
So, tell me a little bit more about like the science. I'm still trying to like wrap my head
Mhm.
around like how can the fibroid shrink? Is it because of the
Mhm.
circulation? Like you're bringing more chi, more
Mhm.
energy, more circulation to the area.
So in order to understand how we use Chinese medicine to treat fibroids, we have to talk about how or what if the root cause the fibroid, at least in the realm of Chinese. So in Chinese medicine, there are two most common reasons for underlying imbalances that leads to fibroid. The first one is like we talked about blood stagnation in the uterus area. And the symptom wise, for example, um, spotting in between periods, dark brown color to start, very excruciating pain around ovulation time, before period, during period, um, pain after sex. So those are the kind of like the most common symptoms when it comes to blood stagnation in the uterus area. And in Chinese medicine, we believe that when the blood circulation slows down in the pelvic area, the blood flow eventually becomes stagnant and causing obstruction, and blockage. And then that's where fibroids, it gives your body an inner environment that is prone for fibroids to show up. And in Chinese medicine, I see a lot of people that have done surgery for fibroids, but they keep coming back. And the reason that we see it is because your body's inner environment hasn't changed. You can get rid of the fibroid, but if the soil really hasn't changed, you can't change the seed.
That makes sense. So the idea is that, like, okay, you have a very bothersome fibroid, you have surgery on the schedule, but what are you doing nutrition wise, lifestyle
Mhm.
wise, to prevent the fibroids from happening again? Because if you have one, like you said, the soil is fertile for more fibroids to occur. And so your
For sure.
tool is, let's do acupuncture, let's get more blood flow, let's get that stagnant chi to become more
Mhm.
energized to prevent this from happening in the future too.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that is the very first point for the common reason for fibroids in Chinese medicine, that the blood flow wise. The second wise, we call it dampness. Dampness is an impaired fluid metabolism that are caused by poor digestion. So in Chinese medicine, our digestion is responsible for transform food into nutrients and then transports the nutrients into wherever it needs to go. But when the but when the digestion gets that dysfunction, it creates it creates an accumulation that we call damp. And dampness can cause inflammation. It is where toxins and bacteria like to hide. And it seems that like it's a very abstract idea, but a lot of people have dampness because American culture wise or food and diet wise really enhances um this concept. It really enhances dampness according to Chinese medicine.
So interesting. Yeah, one of the things that you did for me when we did our visit is you were like, "Oh, let me look at your tongue." And you were like, "Okay, well, you have some dampness here." And I was like, "What the heck are you talking about? What does that that mean?" You're like, "You
Yeah.
more like warm foods." And
Mhm.
I was thinking about that after and I was like, "How do I like make my Western medicine brain understand this a little bit more?" And the only
Yeah.
thing I come up with was like diabetes. So when you
Yes. Yes.
okay, great. So I'm on the right track. So for our listeners who don't really understand diabetes, sometimes what happens is there is a hormone, insulin, that basically tells the glucose, the sugar, the energy that's in your blood, where to go and how to be used, right? So it tells the glucose to enter into the muscle cells when you need to work out or build muscle, right? And if for some reason those hormones are off, then that glucose just stays in the bloodstream and it builds up in the bloodstream and then it can cause inflammation and it can cause all these symptoms that we know and we call diabetes, right? It's like, okay, so it's like the carrier is not getting the energy into where it needs to be.
Exactly. And then another example is a lot of people, especially with fibroids, they have a estrogen dominant. And another way how that's related with dampness is kind of where the fluid, the metabolism get a little problematic. And when you look at the intestines, they do the biggest job in that aspect. So a lot of people with dampness, their intestines don't work the best. So their estrogen can't be metabolized out as much, even though they're taking the same diet, supplements, but why for them, they're estrogen dominant.
So even though estrogen is there, even though
Yeah,
your body is making it, it's just not being metabolized in a way that makes it functional. So,
exactly.
okay, so you have estrogen dominance, meaning that like you have more or a surplus of estrogen, but it's just not being utilized in the way that it needs to be.
Exactly, exactly. So I just love so much that you mentioned diabetes because from Chinese medicine perspective, diabetes itself, the core cause is digestion.
So interesting. So food is medicine, and we need to change the way that we eat in order. Healthier lives. Okay, I hear you.
And another thing that, you know, in terms of dampness and fibroids is there are a lot of food that generate dampness. For example, sugar, high sugar food, high fat food. And these food, if you eat so much of them and your digestion aren't so, optimized, then it can create dampness. And that's how explains how people have a high fat and sugar diet. They are more prone to fibroid growth.
Mm. So, and diabetes. So interesting. And our American diet is chock full of sugar and fat. So interesting. I could talk to you about this stuff literally all day. This will not be the last time that we have you. But
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of your time and just really, again, take the time to acknowledge the work that you're doing in the community. So, where can the
Thank
people
you.
find you?
So I am on Instagram. My handle is Old Town Acupuncturist, and my clinic is right in the center of Old Town, across the street of the City Hall.
Yes, and y'all have to check it out. It's so cute. It's just so wonderful. And Qianlei, it has been such a pleasure to have you. And thank you for helping us with
Thank
Tame the
you.
Taboo.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate everything you do, Jenna. We have common patients and they all love you. Thank you so much for all the work.
Oh, that makes me so happy. Thank you. And they love you too. So we are East meets West.
Perfect, perfect.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tame the Taboo. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Send this to your girlfriend so they can join you on your journey as we transition to our healthiest, wealthiest, best selves. See you in the next episode.